Recently I was able to play the alpha build of Nioh, a dark and bloody role-playing romp through a demon-infested world inspired by ancient Japanese mythology and samurai culture. Many people have been comparing this new IP from Team Ninja, the developer who rebooted the Ninja Gaiden series, to that of Dark Souls. And as a longtime Souls player, I can say the comparison is justified. Nioh is definitely going for a similar feel to a Souls game. Combat feels tight, accurate, and enemies are pattern-based with movesets and tells. Mistakes are punished severely, and you have one chance to recover the experience you lost upon death for those mistakes. There's shrines instead of bonfires, and bosses are extremely epic and punishing. And this, of course, just like any good Souls game, is built on the backbone of deep and rewarding character customization. And in the case of Nioh, this is achieved through stat allocation, skill trees, and equipment having great influence over how your character handles or performs. Now, all of that said, Nioh does do some things differently. It's not just a clone. Some aspects are done better than Dark Souls, but some are done much worse, and I want to talk about that. So before we go any further, I want to state two things. First and foremost, this video is intended for Dark Souls fans, meaning I'm going to be using terms like Estus Flask referring to healing items, or iframes referring to specific dodging mechanics, as well as other various terminology commonly known in the Dark Souls community. And I'm going to do this without diving too deeply into the details of each mechanic. In general, I'm going to be comparing Nioh to Dark Souls quite often, and hopefully if you're not a huge fan of the Souls series, you can still follow along. And for the next thing, it should be stated that Nioh and all the footage here is from the alpha, and any complaints, issues, or features cited in this video could be subject to change over the coming months. The simple fact of the matter is, the Nioh Alpha was only 2 stages. I have no doubt there's a lot I haven't seen, but this is based on what was available. Alright, so to start, the topic I'd like to touch base on is the fact that Nioh is more than just a Souls-like. It's really more like these several games rolled into one. Nioh has a color-coded randomized loot system similar to Diablo. The overworld is a stage-based mission system somewhat akin to missions to Monster Hunter, and the combat falls somewhere in between Ninja Gaiden and Dark Souls. So let's talk about that combat. Now, much like Souls, Nioh has precise and visceral combat with gear affecting character weight and movement, as well as weapons having their own unique styles, movesets, and pros and cons to each weapon category. The difference in Nioh being that each weapon has different stances. You might think of these stances like trick weapon transformations from Bloodborne, but instead of each weapon only having one alternate form, in Nioh each weapon has 3 different stances that change how each weapon operates. The low stance is fast, requires less stamina consumption per swing, but does the least damage of the stances. The high stance drains the most stamina per swing and is the slowest, but it hits the hardest. And finally, the mid stance is just what you'd think it is. It falls somewhere between the two, finding a medium between speed, damage, and stamina consumption. Now, as for the actual combat itself, for the most part it's executed extremely well, and at first glance any Souls fan will be able to relate. You can lock on, dodge, roll, and there's health and stamina. You also have a guard and 2 attacking buttons just like Dark Souls, a standard attack and a slower strong attack. But where this game draws from its Ninja Gaiden roots and separates itself from Dark Souls is through combos. For example, after unlocking various abilities through this skill tree, you're able to sweep an enemy with your spear, spin recklessly with a great axe, or even perform a kick after any subsequent mid-stance sword attack. Shit, you can even go barehanded and perform the timed parry to clap your opponent's blade and turn it around on them. Now these moves, and many other like them, are all performed by various button combinations to achieve differing effects on your opponent. Like with the sword kick, if you do a standard attack followed by a strong attack, you can kick your opponent's guard, greatly decreasing their stamina. And even though there doesn't seem to be shields in Nioh, this kick is to stop enemies from turtling, so to speak, just like in Souls. Draining your opponent's stamina or breaking their guard leaves them open to perform a visceral attack, which is similar to riposte or backstab from Dark Souls. And I have to say, I absolutely love this feature. I love the fact that you can see your foe's stamina and draining it while managing both your stamina and theirs is a big part of combat. It adds a great complexity to combat, and being able to see your opponent's stamina makes the game feel like even though you're the player character, you're subject to the same rule set as your enemy. Now, stamina consumption is an extremely important aspect of Nioh for both parties, enemy and player. This is because in the same way an enemy is open to a critical attack after you deplete their stamina, if you drain all of your stamina completely as well, you stop dead in your tracks to take several heavy-winded breaths for a few seconds. This exposure can be devastating. Now that said, there is a means to regenerate stamina in some fashion during combat depending on how you choose to combine combos, but I am definitely no master of Nioh's nuanced mechanics. Truly, with about 8 hours spent with the game, I can say without question that I've barely scratched the surface of this game's intricacies and deep combat mechanics. For example, on one hand, I thought the second boss of the alpha, named Nioh, some kind of chimera, googly-eyed idiot lightning cat thing, was hard as hell. I did finally defeat the boss, and later it became very easy to defeat, but that wasn't until after many times dying, usually after being one-shot over and over. But I can say that the problem here is most likely not with Nioh, but rather the problem was likely with me. Because on the other hand, I found this clip of a player beating Nioh with almost no armor on, never stopping from his attack combination, and keeping the boss I struggled with stun lock the entire fight. Clearly, the game being too difficult is not the problem. My grasp on the mechanics was. But that in and of itself is still a problem. The game didn't explain how many of these systems operate. Now, whether you like that or not, well, that's up to you. I think some Souls fans will love these aspects of discovery. More to the point though, at times I would struggle to separate myself from the mechanics that I've ingrained in myself from Dark Souls over the years. You definitely can't come into Nioh thinking it's just another Dark Souls, because it definitely is not. And if you're incapable of detaching yourself from the mechanics or muscle memory you've developed over the years of playing Souls, well, then you're going to die. A lot. Even more than normal. Now, one of the most important things for me to learn in Nioh and throw away from Dark Souls was the fact that invincibility frames did not exist, or if they did, I sure as hell didn't notice them. Meaning if you dodge, expecting a sword to pass through you like in Dark Souls, it will not. It will hurt you and more than likely kill you. But all of that said, with different aspects that need to be embraced as changes in Nioh, like combos, stance swapping, alterations to dodging, and many others, there are some things that Nioh needs to re-examine from the Souls series because they're done vastly better there. And to start, the healing items of Nioh are a problem, a huge one that goes against the entire design concept of an action game. So in Nioh, healing items called elixirs work a lot like blood vials from Bloodborne, and they're completely detrimental to Bloodborne as well, but Nioh is even worse. At least in Bloodborne, after you're carrying a maximum amount of healing items on your person, any surplus you loot goes to your storage, and then upon death, your surplus is then used to replenish your healing vials, returning you back to your maximum capacity. But Nioh, on the other hand, you can only carry 10 healing items on you at a time, and after the point of reaching maximum capacity, even if an enemy drops more, they cannot be looted or sent to a storage as surplus. So say you enter a boss fight, use 6 heals, but then die. You'll then need to go farm 6 healing items to return back to your maximum capacity. Now, I'm not saying this is difficult by any means. You can even attune yourself at a shrine to increase the drop rate of elixirs, but that isn't the issue. The issue is that even though I only played Nioh for a short time, it didn't take long at all before this aspect of the game became extremely annoying and repetitive. If it only took a few hours of gameplay for me to absolutely hate this mechanic, then there's something definitely wrong. All I wanted to do was go challenge the boss over and over that kept defeating me. I didn't want to stop every 5 minutes to go farm and refill my healing items. Farming should be an option, not a requirement. And the other thing I don't get is that other aspects of the game do operate like this. For example, your ninjutsu skills, which are based on charges and kind of operate similar to spells and miracles from Dark Souls, refill every time you pray at a shrine or die. So say you attune caltrops or a spell to apply elemental damage to your weapon. If you use all those charges while fighting but then rest or die, they'll refill. So the mechanics are there and the developers do know it's a good idea. I just don't understand why these same concepts aren't applied to the one item that's not only used more often than any other, but is also the only one that's absolutely required to use as well. Simply put, the Estus Flash system is a vastly superior system which complements the ideas and design of what an action game is trying to achieve, as opposed to a healing item that does not automatically renew upon death like the blood vials of Bloodborne or the elixirs of Nioh. The system is at conflict with the very essence of an action game's design. Constantly breaking up the pace of the game to go restore your healing items takes the action out of action RPG. Now, another aspect the devs could benefit to revisit is the online play. In Nioh, the online is mediocre at best. I mean, connectivity is okay, I guess, and there's a little co-op. It's suitable. The way it works is you choose a stage, enter matchmaking, and then you're paired with someone who has their world open to summons, which is done by offering sake at a shrine. Then together you go and try and make your way to the boss to defeat it. And this stage format is another reason why Nioh reminds me of Monster Hunter in a way. You go and you look for a boss to kill it with a friend. But as it stands right now, unlike Monster Hunter or Dark Souls or Bloodborne or any of the games Nioh is drawing inspiration from, there's nothing unique or interesting about the person-to-person online multiplayer at all. I will say though, there is one really cool aspect to the online play, and that's revenants. At first glance, these look like bloodstains from Dark Souls, and in essence, that is what they are. These revenants mark the graves of where another player died online. The thing is, instead of watching the final moments of a player's life before death like in Dark Souls, activating a revenant will summon the player's character as an NPC to fight, and before summoning them you can see their level and gear. If you can defeat them, you'll receive one piece of their gear at random, and it's a pretty cool concept. I like it a lot. Unfortunately, this is about the closest thing to PvP I saw. From the alpha at least, I definitely didn't see any form of unique aspects of PvP, online covenants or factions, or anything you'd come to expect from a Dark Souls game. Additionally, and the worst aspect of all, for the one feature of online connectivity that Nioh does have, which is co-op, it doesn't seem to have any means to play with a specific person or friend. It's like I said, you just choose the stage, pick matchmaking, and co-op is chosen at random. Again, this is just the alpha, and I'm really hoping these aren't the final features of the online play. At the very least, there needs to be some type of means to play with a friend. And I'm really hoping that the final build of the game has a stage that can act as some type of arena for PvP or duels. Now don't get me wrong, I do believe there are issues with Nioh that need to be addressed, but overall I was absolutely infatuated with this game. I love the allure of a loot system similar to Diablo or Borderlands. I actually really enjoyed the level of difficulty despite what many other journalists are saying. I found the combat to be fresh and complex while finding a nice medium between the weighted realism of Dark Souls and the action-heavy intricacies of past Team Ninja games. And just what was from available in the alpha, it seems like there's going to be some interesting and unique ways to create various character builds. And all these aspects point towards a game with great longevity and interesting RPG mechanics. And in those regards, it's clearly obvious that Nioh is attempting to deliver Team Ninja's take on the Souls-like action RPG formula, and ultimately, I'm excited for it. I can't wait to get my hands on it. But with that said, there are tried and true responses the fans have had to every Souls game, and Team Ninja should listen to what is nearly a decade of fan feedback. There's clear evidence of what has worked and hasn't worked in the Soulsborne series. In other words, if Nioh wants to rise in the hearts of Souls fans and to the same level of excellence of the Souls series that it's clearly striving for, a few aspects of Nioh need to be addressed. Beyond that though, just from the alpha, I'm excited for this game and there's plenty of time to make adjustments in the upcoming months. I'm definitely going to keep my ear to the ground regarding the development of this game, and I may actually already have an interview lined up with Team Ninja, but we'll see how things go. Alright guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit the like button. It goes a long way with the success and searchability videos here on YouTube. It helped me out a lot and I'd really appreciate it. Also, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Nioh. What'd you think of it and what'd you think of what I said here? Did you get a chance to play the alpha and did you enjoy it as much as I did? Alright guys, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.